Spinach is one of those crops that I mentioned on lettuce that is that does a lot better in the cold. So it is very cold hardy. In fact, we have spinach that is outside right now that's been unprotected all winter that we planted in the fall. And it's not really producing much right now. It's just kind of laying dormant and chilling, literally. But in the spring, it will start putting off leaves. It'll be one of the first plants that we start harvesting from. And then it'll be like one of the first plants that goes to seed and is done for the year. But then all the spinach that we plant pretty much here in a few weeks, we're about a month away. We'll probably push it. We'll try and do spinach early. Here in about 2 weeks, I'll start trying to plant spinach outside, depending on the weather. And a lot of this kind of winter planting or like early spring planting, like winter planting, if you get a spell of weather where it's nice for a couple weeks, like you can get some of these started. And the spinach will be one of those things I'm trying to start if we get that kind of little gap of 30s to 50s. Like if we're below 30, I'm not really trying to start anything. It's not going to go well. But if we get that gap of 30 to 50, I'm going to be trying that. So spinach is one of our absolute favorite things to grow. It's the first thing that really made me fall in love with gardening because, for one, we were spending a lot of money on spinach at the store before, and
Yes.
and we never really I was never really excited to eat the spinach from the store. I was just trying to be healthy and I was trying to make a little salad mix, and it wasn't anything special. But once we started growing it, we felt differently about it because spinach from the garden just tastes so much better. I'm not just saying that; it really does. There's something about when it's grown. Number one, it's the varieties you're able to grow in your backyard are ones that are better suited for taste, whereas the varieties that are grown for the grocery store are oftentimes varieties that are better suited for transportation and for preservation and for sitting on the shelf a long time without going bad. So if you don't have to worry about that and you can just harvest it and eat it immediately, then you can focus on the varieties that taste the best or maybe varieties that have specific purpose. Like we have some spinach varieties like Imperial Star. I gotta find that window. Here it is.
I love Imperial Star. Yeah.
That makes these like giant spinach
They're like
leaves.
uniquely shaped kind of too. That's probably why they're named star because they almost have a star like because they have like these yeah, you can kind of see the leaves there.
Yeah, and they get really big. So these leaves will be like the size of a tortilla, and we will use them as a tortilla replacement. So a lot of times in the spring, my lunch is just some of these spinach leaves with some like rice and chicken and beans or something like leftovers from dinner the night before that we reheat, and I just throw them in some of these spinach wraps and maybe some salsa or something, and it's amazing. We'll also do like salmon with some onions and that, like mix all that with some little bit of rice and put it inside these little big spinach leaves. And this is just like scratching the surface of all the different types of spinach. We could do an entire like live stream
Probably, yeah.
on just spinach. So there's a
So
lot of
Robin
different things we can
says
do.
that she loves spinach, but she's had a hard time growing it.
Spinach
So
can be finicky to germinate. Here's what we've learned about spinach. We've never really had success starting it indoors. We don't even try anymore. And also, I just know that there may be plantings that don't really do well. And that's why I succession plant spinach. Once I start planting it, I'm usually throwing out more seeds every week or two. And that way, like one of those rounds will do well because they can be fickle and temperamental when it comes to temperatures. If it gets too hot, it doesn't like to germinate. If it can handle cold better than it can handle hot. But there's just a lot of different things with spinach that can cause it to be finicky. But we've had way better success just growing outside. And typically, what we'll do with spinach is we'll either do the square foot gardening method when we use the seeding square that has the spacings, and we'll do 9 per square. Or a lot of times I'll just have a raised bed that I just take spinach seeds and just sprinkle all through it. And I'll do a mix of like spinach and kale that I do that with. And then that bed becomes a mix of both. And I just thin down as they grow. And it's just easier that way, just kind of sprinkle seeds. And then we end up with way more than we need because we eat a lot of spinach when it's in season. We're getting a lot of my lunches are just nothing but spinach wraps or something like that because I'm super busy and it's really convenient.
and the
And I
kids love doing it too. They love going out and just picking the leaves out there and just eating them.
Yeah, and there's some that have almost like a nutty flavor. There's some that have a bit of sweetness to them. Like they're all a little bit different, and that's one of the cool things about spinach. There's not a ton of pests you have to deal with, not a lot of issues other than just keeping it from getting too hot. Because once it does start to get hot, then spinach is going to do what it's called bolting, where the middle of the plant gets like it starts to form in the middle and it gets tall and then there's a bunch of seeds at the top. That's basically the plant saying I'm done now. I'm putting out seeds and the leaves get bitter and just don't taste as good. Spinach can be one of the first ones to do that if we get like a heat snap and I'm not good about going outside and keeping my plants cool. So a spinach is one of those things that a lot of times I'm trying to plant it somewhere that it's going to get a lot of sun in the spring, but then when it starts warming up, it's gets more shade in the afternoon. And I generally do that by planting it on the side of a plant that will get taller. So I might have it next to where like my tomatoes are going to be, or maybe like a squash or something like that. So the spinach will be completely like gets all the sun early in the season because there's no tomato out there. But then once my tomatoes go out and they start growing, then they create shade so that the spinach is in the shade in the afternoon. That's a real key with spinach is think about where you're going to put it because that's a key factor with growing spinach. But other than that, it's pretty easy to grow and it has a ton of health benefits. It's one of the top things that we grow just for the health benefit side of it. It has a lot of magnesium in it, which has been proven to help with things like anxiety and depression.